talk us through '94 and that moment with Michael.
Well, it was a whole season of drama, as we know, because of Imola and the awful things that happened there. So the championship was a tough year, and we closed the gap on Michael. I beat him in Suzuka. We came here for the big showdown. So I only realised the other day, because I saw a YouTube shot of it, but on the Friday, Michael had a big crash, actually, going through the chicane, turn 1, 2. He went off into the barriers. And so the pressure was clearly on him, and he'd never won a world championship before. I'd never won a world championship before. So it was everything to play for. And then it rained, and Nigel Mansell, so that we couldn't get a time in on the Saturday, and Nigel Mansell was on pole. So I was just behind Nigel. I was qualified 3rd. Michael was 2nd. And we had the World Championship to win. So when the lights went out, I don't know how, I can't remember what happened to Nigel, but anyway, we both got past him and were going at it hammer and tongs throughout the first, 20 or so laps. And it was flat out pace, and we were miles from everyone, just trying to win the World Championship between us. And eventually, he got slightly ahead of me because he went past the back marker and I get held up, and then I couldn't see him. So when I came around the corner and I saw him coming back on the track, I didn't know he'd hit the wall. I just saw a guy coming back. And because Suzuka, the race before, I saw him going off the track and coming back on. I thought, this guy has got 9 lives. You know, he's like an escapologist. So I thought, he's got away with it again. I've got to go for it now. And the rest is history, as we know. But it was such an amazingly exciting weekend that I didn't win the championship. Really, I didn't feel like I'd lost anything, because I thought that I didn't think I'd ever be in that situation. What we thought would be happening would be Ayrton Senna would be racing Michael Schumacher and get the championship. So I definitely felt like I was kind of an understudy for Ayrton, and I tried my best. And it didn't happen, and that was Michael's first World Championship of 7.
Yeah. Incredible, incredible. Can you just listen to Damon all day? Oh, yes, everyone's nodding
Well,
along.
my wife can't do that all day, I can tell her. She just looks at me and goes, what is he talking about now? So thank you very much. And I noticed there's a gentleman over here with a T-shirt. Who else has got a T-shirt that is 20 years old, 25 years old? No? We got 1 or 2. Would you like to stand up, sir? You're wearing one of my... That's it, the one with the white stripes. Damon Hill merchandise. Quality merchandise, that is. So it's wonderful to see. And we got a Benson Hedges. Oh, well done. Fantastic. So it's great to see people wearing historic merchandise around here. We should have a historic merchandise show.
Yeah, absolutely. 20 years. Wow, that is very, very good fabric.
It's very good fabric, and yeah, I'm glad. I think maybe we overdid the quality of the material, because you're never going to buy one again, is he?
Yeah. So, yeah, talk us through '95, because it was such a pivotal moment for yourself, winning here, and as we say, the last but not final Adelaide.
Never say never.
Never say never. Yeah, talk us through that weekend, and talk us through the strategies that came out, and how the team took on the challenge.
What, for '95?
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, as I said, it was a dismal year, and Michael had won the championship before we got here, so the championship was over, and we kind of didn't think we were going to get anything. So everyone was a bit down in the dumps. So to actually come away with a win was remarkable, and that lifted everyone's spirits. And actually, I've got one of my old mechanics, Paul West, is actually here. If you see him, there's a guy, largest-looking chap in Rothman's. Can't sell cigarettes anymore, but anyway, Williams Kit, who was actually working on my car. Way back then, he's here now, and so it's nice to see him. But the team themselves went home after having won the championship, and I remember Frank asked me up to talk about driving for him the following year, and he actually asked me, he said, "How did you do that in Adelaide?" Because he'd written me off, I think. You know, we'd had such a terrible time, so it was a very fortuitous but very timely thing, and a great way to end the season. We won the last race, and so, you know, we took something from the season anyway. And Michael, Michael had won his second title by then, so he was off and running. But I still had to win one.
And reflecting on that throughout your career, how does that win rank for you?
Oh, it was kind of sad in a way that it was the last time we were going to come back to race in Adelaide. But until, well, when I say last time, what I mean is the last time I raced with there. But anyway, it was a nice way to end it, because I mean it was the end of season, the last race of the season, and there was a big sign-off, and we were sad to leave Adelaide, but we also knew we were coming back to Australia in the other place, which we will be going to next weekend, but we can't mention their name. But anyway, it was great. And I then went on to do the first race in the other place, and I won that one. So I claim, it's a very, very weak kind of claim, really, but I claim to have been the only person to have won consecutive races in the same country. I'm not sure how much that held up against the statisticians. You've got a difficult word to say. But anyway, it was great. I won twice in Australia, back-to-back races, so that was good.
Damon, a stat's a stat, isn't it? So, yeah, back-to-back Australian Grand Prix wins. It's fantastic. But, yes, we don't talk about the other place. Now, it is 30 years since the tragic passing of Senna, as you've mentioned before, in 94. But let's talk around your relationship with him. Obviously, teammate, and as you just sort of said, the mentee. So, please talk us through that.
Well, he was a controversial figure because he was so aggressive on the track. And obviously he was massively revered by his legions of fans and, of course, the whole nation of Brazil. And he was carrying a kind of beacon of hope, I think, for a lot of Brazilians. He was, when we went to his funeral, there was a guy interviewed, and he was crying, and he just said he was the best thing about Brazil. You know, that he had this weight on his shoulders, it seemed like. So he was a kind of enigmatic, curious figure. And I don't think I took him that seriously when I was racing against him, because I'd see him complain about other people's driving standards, and yet there he was, someone who was quite happy to drive into the back of Alain Prost on the first lap of a Grand Prix to knock him out of the championship. So I thought, well, he's a bit hypocritical. And I was looking at an old video on YouTube about coming here after the race in Japan where Eddie Irvine had held him up. And then Eddie Irvine had met Ayrton in the garages around the back of Suzuka and got into an argument with Ayrton. I think Ayrton would have been goaded on by that rogue Gerhard Berger, who'd given him some schnapps as well. So now Ayrton is getting a bit punchy, and he literally clocked Eddie Irvine, which he deserved. But because he's anyway. And then Eddie sort of revs it up. He thinks this is great publicity. So there was a whole story behind Ayrton as he came here. And then it turns out I was going to be racing with Ayrton the following season. And someone interviewed me, and I was saying, he's a little bit naughty, isn't he? And I think he's a little bit of a hypocrite. And that was before I actually got to meet him. But so next thing I know, I'm in a team with him, but he was very nice to me. So maybe he didn't hear the comments I made, but he was formidable. That's the best word, I think, to describe him. He was formidable as a competitor, absolutely terrifyingly fast and committed, as I described when I was talking about his qualifying lap round here. And we've all seen the onboard footage of Monaco, and he drove with an aggression and a competitive spirit which is unrivaled, I think, even today. It was terrifying. And I think, unfortunately, it got the better of him. I think he was prepared to take every risk there was in order to win, and it all culminated, sadly, in what happened in Imola. And he paid the price. But I think that he was extraordinarily brave, because I think he accepted that there were those risks. And I think he just was never going to back out of any kind of racing situation. And so he will live forever as one of the most astonishing racing drivers and sportsmen ever to have gone into the arena, I think.
Extremely well said. Hands together, everyone. That was incredible. Thank you for that insight. Thank you.
Yeah.
And as you say, though, such a formidable character as your teammate. And what did you learn from him?
Nothing.
Okay.
No. He didn't give much away. I wasn't actually with him for very long, and I'm being facetious. I did learn stuff from him. I learned that when he came into the team and he was very emphatic. So when he spoke to the engineers, normally an engineer would come up to you with a clipboard and say, "How was the car?" And you'd say, "Well, I've got a bit of understeer." And then they'd walk off halfway through what you're saying and kind of go and get a cup of tea. But he used to grab them and say no, and he would make sure that the engineer understood what he was saying about the car, and then he'd say it again, so the engineer was left in no doubt about what he was saying. And I thought that was really important insight for me, because things can get lost, but he was so precise and determined and rigorous and thorough, and that's what I think I probably picked up from being with Ayrton. But then I had been with Alan Prost and also Nigel Mansell. They're all the same. They work hard. They're not just brilliant. They are incredibly detailed and hardworking. And when you combine the talent with all that attention to detail, they're very, very difficult to beat.
And I actually read an interesting article from 2014, which is around the 20-year anniversary. It was in the Guardian. And you spoke about that era, that sort of the early 90s and the high risk that it really was. And perhaps now in a different era of Formula One, it's, of course, still dangerous, but maybe not as high risk, because innovation has made the cars safer. So do we not maybe have an appreciation now for what those guys were facing, and yourself?
Well, look, I don't think anybody would want to go through what happened at Imola again. It was horrific. We lost two great sports people and friends, and we live in a much better time from that point of view. I do think that, you know, if you take the extreme case of someone like Stirling Moss, who thought that the danger should be there, and that was part of the deal, is you're dicing with death, literally. Then I think that would be too much. But I promise you, no matter how safe these cars are, who here would like to drive straight through an Armco barrier at 150 miles an hour, burst into flames, sit there for a couple of seconds, trying to get out, and then hop out almost unscathed? I'm talking about Roman Grosjean, of course. He was saved by the introduction of the halo, which had only just come in. He would not be alive if it wasn't for that. And when they were talking about putting the halo in the cars, I just thought, oh, come on, that's one step too far. Well, I'm not saying that now. And so I think it's still scary. It's still impressive when you see the cars for real. And I think no one should be under any illusions that these guys are very brave. Saudi Arabia, just recently, that was spectacular. I know it wasn't a great race at the front, but that track is very fast and quite mesmerizing, and it gets your attention. And I think sometimes that's enough. You know, that you can walk out of an accident, it's great, but it's still going to hurt a lot. You don't want to have one.
And we're thoroughly enjoying having you, obviously, as a Formula One analyst. So we have to ask about Max Verstappen. We have to. Are we looking at another Max Verstappen runaway with this year?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm not supposed to say that. What I'm supposed to say is there's always... Listen, Formula One seasons are very long. This is the longest Formula One season ever, if we make it through and there isn't anything else that comes up. And because we had a flood in Imola last year. I went to Imola and they cancelled the race and it was underwater. But anyway, so it's going to be a long season. Things, as you know, are happening at Red Bull. We can't work out what the hell's going on. But anyway, it doesn't seem like a happy camp right at the moment. So does that have an effect on the team? Will that destabilise things? Possibly. But currently, they've got the class of the field car. But the other teams have a lot still in their back pocket. And there's every chance that they can close the gap on Red Bull.
And I have to ask about our emerging talent, our emerging Australian talent within Formula One. Obviously, we saw Liam Lawson with his cameo last year. Yeah, talk us through sort of, your thoughts on Liam. He's coming up next, by the way, so if he's here...
Is he here?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, well, I think he did brilliantly, didn't you? I mean, I thought he did, just jumped in, looked like he knew what he was doing, and survived that experience. And we have seen a few drivers do that. George Russell did a fantastic job when he got at short notice. So these younger drivers are very well prepared for the occasion. But you have to be ready. It's no good having an opportunity, because you're not going to get a little opportunity like that ever again. You could never get that opportunity again. So you have to be ready. So Liam was ready for that, and then he jumped, and we'll see. I mean, it was at the expense of your other Australian driver, Daniel, obviously. So I'm not sure if he's fully recovered yet, but it's great that you see younger drivers, and I think with Ollie Behrman coming in, the excitement around new faces is palpable, and it's understandable, because you don't want it going stale with the same people. There's only 20 people in our sport. It's not even as many people as you get in a football match. So, so anyway, how you fix that, I don't know. You can't just pull people out of the car and say, that you had your go, let's have someone else in there. But Red Bull do that quite a lot. But maybe, I think it's very, very difficult to get into. You have to be patient, you have to be prepared, and maybe fortune will favour you at some point, if you're lucky.
So let's talk through a career in motorsport. Obviously, you've known it as a driver, you've known it within a team, and obviously you've known it within commentary as well. I know there's several people in this audience now that would dream of doing, especially commentary and reporting in Formula One. So, talk us through what it's really like. And because it's not a job, is it, Damon? It's a lifestyle.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. It's not a job. It's something you have to love.
Yeah.
And so, because you love it, you know the subject. So you could say it's a bit like a hobby. When young kids get a hobby, they know everything about dinosaurs or something like that. So Formula One's a bit like that. And there's no better hobbyist enthusiast than David Croft and Martin Brundle and Ted Kravitz. And they've lived it, they breathed it as a fan. I've been through it as a competitor. So I started off as a fan, then I became a competitor, and now my son started racing, so then I was a racing dad, and now I'm still here. I thought I was going to do a bit of TV whilst my son was racing, just to get back into the swing of things, and then he retired, and so I'm still doing the job. But I don't know how I got left there, but I've really enjoyed working with the gang, with Sky, and there's no way I can remember all the statistics and the data that they all know, but I have actually had the privilege of being there, so I can talk from experience about what's going on, maybe between the ears of a racing driver or with a car. So I do my best. I hope it's all right. I don't know. We like to have a bit of fun as well. But you could just write to Sky if you want to get rid of me, and we'll... Look, I'm near retirement anyway, so there's only so many more years in the old dog.
What do you like as a racing dad?
Yeah, well, it was interesting, that one, because you don't want to push someone. I always say you can lead a horse to water, but they have to do the drinking. So with Josh, I always wondered where he was. I didn't want to push him, but he had the talent. He got up to racing in Formula 3 and did very well. He could race at the sharp end. He raced against a lot of guys who went on to Formula 1, Carlos Sainz, Daniel Kvyat, Giovinazzi, quite a few of them ended up, his guys he raced against, did very well and continued racing. But he just said, look, it's not him. He didn't feel the need to compete. So I was happy he found out that, rather than made everyone go through all the process of trying to encourage him. I mean, the karting thing, it's very difficult for parents because it costs a fortune. There's a huge sacrifice. And poor little Johnny, or Jane, whoever it is, has got this responsibility of making this investment worthwhile. And so you can sometimes see parents getting a bit heated. Yes. And that's a lot of pressure on a young person. So But the young guys who've been through that process, the Lando Norrises, the Alex Albons, they've come up through karting, and the Ollie Behrmans, you know, it's their life. They've just lived racing, and they seem to love it, and they've delivered on their investment. So they're very, very adept in every regard, because it's a bit like being a fighter pilot now in Formula One. You have to understand so much of the technicalities of the car and have an incredible presence of mind. It's not like it was in my day, where they patted you on the head and you left the garage and you went onto the grid, and then they never spoke to anyone for about an hour and a half after that. So the only thing we got on the radio was, can you come in and change the tyres now? You know, it was very limited, the communication in those days.
And just finally, talking about the current Formula One field, who impresses you? Tell us who your favourite is. That's what I'm trying to say.
I can't pick anyone out particularly. I mean, obviously Lewis is stunning, and his career has been stellar, and what he has done in other regards as well has also been massively impressive, because he's stuck his neck out into some very deep water politically, and I think he's shown us all what can be done if you put your mind to it and you're prepared to say what you believe in. So he's admirable in that respect. But I think, you know, I have a kind of sneaking regard for Fernando Alonso, the old fox, who seems to out-cun everyone, cunning, you know, as he is. And he's quite witty. So the great thing is there's all these different characters. There's no one thing. I kept trying to if you're an aspiring racing driver, you think, well, who am I? Which one am I? Am I Alan Prost? Am I Nigel Mansell? Am I Keke Rosberg? You can't be any of those people. They are who they are, and you have to be yourself. And so that's the great thing, is there's no one way to skin this cat. You know, you just have to go out and give what you've got, and you'll be one of the players in the field. You know, and so we got a whole host of characters to choose from in Formula One, which is interesting.
Yeah, it certainly makes good viewing on Drive to Survive, absolutely.
Yeah. Why do you think Drive to Survive is so successful?
Because
the guys take their shirts off. Is that why?
No. Keep them on. Yeah. Sorry, girls. I only speak for myself. I want to see them in the car. But I think, obviously, there's producers that are making things interesting, which happens in all TV. But it's rivalry, isn't it? That's what ignites sport, and Drive Survive delivers it.
Have you had Gunther here? Is he coming up here?
He's in this afternoon.
Yeah, so you'll be able to get it all from the horse's mouth. Yeah, okay. he needs his mouth washing out with a bar of soap, actually. To be honest. So have you got any soap here? But no, it is. That's what it is. I mean, we lived that as we were racing, but it was always behind closed doors. Yeah. And you come out and you see the press, and you kind of go, if you only knew what was going on in that room, you know, you'd have a fantastic story. But we couldn't say anything. But now it's all there for you to enjoy.
Enough said. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Damon Hill.
Thank you very much.